Hello, everyone, and welcome. And thank you so much for joining our first firearms legal protection webinar of the new year. Can't believe it's 2026 already, and it's already almost the end of January. But we won't talk about that because it's insane. But as always, I'm Ariana. I'm the host for most of our webinars here, and whether you're joining us live or watching the replay, we're really glad that you're here with us. So, as we step into the new year, I know I said we weren't going to talk about that, but it's good to mention a lot of people are setting goals and whether that's getting healthier or being more intentional and making better decisions. And tonight's webinar, I think, fits that just right, in the right mindset that we need to be in, because we're going to be talking about something that unfortunately can affect us all in the everyday life. And that's how not to get robbed. But before we jump in, I just want to preface all of this with this is not fear-based conversation at all. And the goal tonight isn't to make you feel anxious or suspicious of everyone around you, which I know can be very difficult, especially in today's age. But instead, we want to help you build a very simple, practical awareness habits that can reduce your chances of ever being targeted in the first place, which is why we have Austin Davis joining us again to kick us off the year strong. So if you guys have watched any of our past webinars with Austin, you already know why he's such a valuable resource. He has that unique way of bringing down topics like situational awareness, decision-making under stress, real-world self-defense, and everyday preparedness, and when the way he explains it, the information actually sticks. And he brings in decades of experience in law enforcement training, and he's trained thousands of people, not even just on webinars, but in person across the country to think more clearly and act more intentionally in everyday situations. But I think what really sets him apart, and I'm not trying to I keep hyping you up here, but you are really phenomenal.
Keep going. I'm loving this.
Right? But what really I think sets you apart is just your ability, like what I was saying earlier, just to make these complex or serious topics like avoiding robbery and explaining them in a way that feels practical, relatable, and immediately useful. Honestly, he's just the kind of instructor that you walk away feeling more confident and capable than when you walked in. I wish I had teachers like that growing up, because some of them, I didn't understand what they were talking about, but yeah, you get it. But tonight, Austin will be sharing insight into why most crimes of opportunity happen, not because someone's weak or careless, just because they were probably just not being aware. They might have been a little bit distracted or a little predictable. And he'll walk us through how criminals choose targets and common mistakes we might be making without realizing it. But as always, we'll have a Q&A at the end, so feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat as we go, and this webinar will be recorded. So you can come back later to share it with friends or family, or just to rewatch it again if you want. Alrighty, Austin, do you want to get us started?
Hello, my FLP family. I'm so glad to be starting off this new year with this topic. But the reason why we had to do this topic is because my brother had an experience with this. And what's so sad about that is I was trying to explain to him, after the fact, and I kept thinking so many of these tips I was telling him, I think if I'd have told him earlier, it might have changed things out. So tonight's topic is how to prevent, manage, and recover from robbery. Now, before we go any farther, let me kind of explain what robbery is, because people get really confused. When you're in my line of work, I'm a police officer, and you hear the 911 phone calls, people calling all the time, I was robbed, but it was a theft, or I was burglared. So let's try to explain what a robbery is. Robbery in its simple form is theft with force or threat of force. And I'm going to kind of back up and interrupt myself, and I'm going to try this with you. And if I can do this, I think for the rest of your life, you'll never be confused again. You have a bicycle. You're out riding your bicycle, and you decide that, man, I am thirsty. I'm going to go take my bicycle back to my house, and I'm going to put it on the sidewalk out in front of my house. I'm going to go and get a drink of water. Go in, come out, bike's gone. Robbery, burglary, or theft. That one is a theft. Now, you get thirsty as you're riding your bike. You decide, I'm going to come on home. Garage door opens up. The garage is attached to the house. And you go in, leave the garage door open, come back after you get your drink of water. Bike's gone. Robbery, burglary, or theft. That's a burglary. You're riding your bike. You're getting thirsty. On the way home, some big ruffian steps out in front of you, stops your bike, and says, get off the bike or I'm going to take this rock and I'm going to smack you upside the head. And you go, well, I don't really like my bike more than I like getting a smack up the head. So take the bike. That is a robbery. So when you talk about robbery, remember, it is just a theft with either force or threat of force. Okay. Now we have that kind of set on up. Let me kind of tell you what happened to my brother. He did not get robbed. He had a burglary, but it came close to being a robbery. My brother was at a range, an indoor range, very popular one here in Houston, and he had a friend in from Poland, of all places. So this guy comes to Texas. What do you do with somebody who comes from Texas? You take them to shoot guns because that's how Texans are. And so afterwards, they load up. My brother drives about 14 miles back to the edge of town, drops his guest off at this guest hotel room. On the way home, my brother decides to stop off and get wings. It's my brother's thing. He parks right up front where while he's eating wings, he can keep an eye on the car. It's well lit. It's in a safe parking lot, one that's near his home that he's eaten at before. Goes in, eats his wings, comes back out, gets in the car and realizes, it's kind of cold in this car and windy. Looks back, window's been broken. The bag with the guns in them, which he had thrown a black, sort of a black pile kind of towel-like blankety kind of thing over it. So it really was invisible for anybody who was just looking in. They didn't go through his glove box. They didn't take anything else out the vehicle. It was somebody. So he calls me up and says, hey, I'd like to file a report on this. What do you think? I'm like, yes, for sure. I said, call the police, get a report. He did, got contacted by Houston police the next day, and they told him, yes, you probably were followed home. We have had this problem at this location before. And they kind of feel the same way I do. He got lucky that he stopped for dinner because our guess is when he pulled into his driveway to get out at probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock, something like that. By this time, they would have followed him home, blocked in the driveway, robbed him, taken the guns, or taken him inside and had a whole other problem. So he just barely missed this. 6 months ago, 8 months ago, close friend of mine was we're in the same charitable organization. He had gone to the bank to make a deposit, had the bank bag, came out of the bank bag, had gone and made one stop, made another stop. His second stop after leaving the bank, he stopped at a dry cleaner's. He had just stepped out the vehicle, made it just a few feet away from the car. It's all in surveillance camera, smashed the rock, grabbed the bag, and took off. Now, that was a burglary, but it was not a robbery. But it could have easily been turned into a robbery. So when we talk about robbery, let's think about what kind of locations we get robbed in. Well, you really, if you think about it, you're probably going to get robbed in something called transitional space. If you've been following along with me, you know what that is. The transitional space is where you're leaving one secure location to another secure location. That's a transitional space. Think your car to a store to your car. Think of maybe your apartment or your office building to the parking garage and then back before. Also, in a public space, a lot of times you have robberies where you're going to have congestion or isolation. I know those two sound like they're on the opposite ends, but they both serve different points. Now, what type of person gets robbed? Pretty much anybody, but really they're looking for someone who's quick, easy, low risk, low possibility resistance, looking for someone who's not paying attention, someone who appears weak, someone who appears vulnerable population. So it could be someone with limited mobility, but also in my case, if I'm around small children and I'm trying to get them in car seats or get them out of car seats, they know there's not going to be a whole lot of fighting with a small child in my hands or I'm distracted. But there's also another person that could end up getting robbed very easily. And that's someone who has obvious displays of something of value that a criminal would think, wow, is a risk worth a reward, juice worth the squeeze in this deal. I've been wearing a sort of a fancy watch since I was 18. My father almost got killed for his watch about 20 years ago when they robbed him for his Rolex. So when you have obvious things that people want, they will tend to pick even somebody who normally you wouldn't think would be an easy robbery victim. So when we talk about the type of person that has robbery, the places they have robbery, what about the types of robbery? So you're probably thinking, doesn't it only come in one flavor? Actually, there's really two different types. There's what I call the ambush or the blitz. That's one category on one side of the thing, and the other is the interview. The interview is real common. We'll talk about it in a second. Let's talk about the less common. That's the ambush or the blitz. An ambush is an ancient technique. Since one human being took a rock or a stick and killed another human being, they probably did it by ambush. An ambush is a trap sprung on a moving target from a place of concealment. Let me do that again. It's a trap sprung from a place of concealment on a moving target. If they're not concealed, there's not a whole lot of ambush. If the target's not moving, there's no chance for intersection and areas of vulnerability to intersect. So you may have someone who's hiding who jumps out and appears out of nowhere. You may have someone who's walking past you with no pre-attack indicators who just bam out of nowhere just bops you right in the nose and then affects the crime then. The best way to deal with this is first off to understand it is likely but not the most common. So usually the way I like to tell people about this is the way to avoid ambush is to kind of lead with your eyes, look for people who are hanging out. The problem with an ambush is, let's say you're going to Target and you come on back out, and as you're walking out towards your car, you look underneath your car from a distance because you're smart and you live a defensive lifestyle, and you see a pair of legs behind your car, but you don't see a person. Either one of two things has happened. Either somebody is crouched behind waiting to attack you, or someone threw away a set of legs. Either way, probably need to go back into Target. But that same ambush could also happen when you park, you come back out, all of a sudden van door opens up, dude pops right out, or vehicle's next to you, they pop on out. That is an ambush in a place of concealment. But the interesting part about concealment is it's not concealed as in you can't see me. It's concealed as in you can't understand my attention. So the way we want to work out about this is we want to do this with situational awareness. As you're walking out, the real key to avoiding this is to do a couple of things. Number one is to take your eyes and physically raise your visual horizon. I want you to try something at home while we're doing this. It's really kind of interesting, and I'm not setting you up for a joke. Do me a favor, stare right at the tip of my nose. And while you stare at the tip of my nose, keep looking at my nose, keep looking at my nose, keep looking at my nose. As you stare at my nose, start lowering your head, but keep trying to look at my nose, keep trying to look at my nose, and at some point I'll disappear. Your eyes are designed in a very specific way. And if you understand this, you can do a whole lot to prevent yourself from being in an ambush or blitz type robbery. And that is, our eyes are designed to look at their central or foveal point and below. Our peripheral vision works in a horizontal band. So when you walk out in public and you do what most people naturally do, which is look about 3 to 5 to 6 feet in front of them as they walk, the problem with that is you really can't see above your horizon. It's literally kind of like walking with blinders on. This does two problems. Number one, it makes you in a submissive, vulnerable body posture. Bad guys pretty much understand what I just told you, even if they can't do the foveal and peripheral vision and horizontal band. They kind of got this figured out. The second thing is they know that they are invisible themselves, and it puts you in a position with your head down. Generally, you tend to roll your shoulders forward, which is more of a vulnerable signal to a predator. If you look like food, you're going to get eaten. This quote from my mother when I was a child. I'd always leave it. You want to play? Yeah, be careful. Look like food. You're going to get eaten. Which, understanding my family, that was just a well wish and a nice thought on the way out the door. So as we're walking out, we want to keep our head up so we get a more of a visual intake, and we want to scan. And the idea also is when you're scanning is to kind of look around at places. And let me give you sort of a visual reference. Let's say you're coming from your car to an apartment, or from your car to your office building. And there's a lot of places where when you go make a right turn or a left turn, there might be something that you know is a empty area of vulnerability underneath a stairwell, a bush, some sort of vending little alcove or something. And if you know that's a situation that could be a problem, just do yourself a favor, swing wide and approach. And what that does is it allows you to see in that angle from enough distance to have more of a reactionary gap. More gap, more time leads for more options lead for hopefully better outcomes. Lead with your eyes. Also, this just kind of helps you from whacking into somebody when you cut a corner tightly and they're on their phone and I'm sorry, I almost hit you. So leading with your eyes. And if you see something that doesn't make sense around the path of travel or the destination of travel, a lot of times we will talk ourselves out of it. A lot of times we go, man, I don't like that guy sitting there in that car smoking a cigarette next to me. I like to park. Me personally, I like to park away from everybody else. I tend to park on the edges because I want nothing but my vehicle when I show up. I don't want any other points of conflict or areas of vulnerability near my vehicle. And if all of a sudden I park my car in a situation where it's away, all of a sudden I come back and there's somebody in that car, or more often, more than one. Remember, Wolves travel in packs. When we think about attackers and robbery, a lot of times we think about one person, but generally speaking, they bring a friend or a couple of friends. So if you see something, don't talk yourself out of it. Go, man, this is a problem here. Something doesn't feel right. And then ask yourself one of three outcomes. Number one, do I need to avoid it and just keep on marching on? Uh, uh, Ignore it and keep on marching on. Number two, do I need to avoid it? Do I need to turn around, go back, regroup, go find a security guard, go wait till some other people that I think are inherently safe heading that direction because there is some safety in numbers, or need to modify my approach? Maybe I set off my car alarm or do something else, or don't approach it. The trick with this is when you suspect that someone could be ready to blitz attack you or hiding an ambush, is it threatening or a threat or just an anomaly that looks scary? And if you have any doubts, weigh the cost of, hey, what does it cost me to go back in the store, spend 5 or 10 minutes, make a call if I have to see if I can bring somebody else, some security apparatus out here to sort of solve this problem. These type of attacks do happen. Generally speaking, if you're alert to them and you're also asking yourself a simple question, like that little kid song, what doesn't belong with the other? When you're in a parking lot or a gas station or whatever, what should people be doing? Well, you should be getting gas or moving back and forth. If someone's there paying attention to what's going on around them, either a crook, a cop, or you looking for somebody else, a good guy, high level defender. But that's a blitz attack and that's an ambush attack. And when those happen, they're quick and violent, and generally speaking, not a whole lot you can do without having a reactionary gap and having some sort of plan. We'll talk about the use of force later on in a robbery. The most common type of attack, though, is a four-step attack. It's so common. It's almost like almost all your robbers kind of went to the same webinars or same trade school. There's 4 steps to these attacks. First step is they pick you. The reason they picked you out of a crowd is they thought you're quick, easy, low risk, low possibility resistance, or you are high possibility resistance, but you're displaying something of such value that they don't really care and the juice is worth the squeeze. Second thing you're going to do is they're going to position you. They really can't rob you from across the parking lot. They've got to get close. So what we know in that one is if you're cruising along and all of a sudden someone has some sort of unexplained path of intersection, you're walking down this side of the parking lot, they're walking this side, and all of a sudden they shoot over in there to pass you close. Man, that is an anomaly. That does not fit the baseline. People are generally lazy. We like to take the most efficient, shortest paths to that. And if you see that, that's where you may want to stop, back up, take a step, kind of make sure you make eye contact with them. So after they pick you, after they position you in the second step, the third step is usually going to be what I call the interview. They're going to try to ask you a socially relevant question. Hey, do you know where this is? Hey, I think I went to school with you. Hey, do you have the time? Can I borrow $1? Do you have a lighter? My phone is dead. Can I use your phone? Something to attract your attention. And what they want to do is they want to fix you in that spot. The reason they picked that moment and that place is because it favors them, not you. And they probably already figured this out. When that happens and you're engaging with that person, remember, wolves travel in packs. It's real easy for friends or friends, plural, to slip up behind you. So when that happens, a couple of things you want to do when the interview happens is you want to make sure you deal with it at this level, because if you wait until the attack and try to work on things, that's a little too late. So they pick you, they position, they start the interview. For me, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I got both my hands up. And I want to say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. I don't really care what they're asking me, but I do know this. If I have to sit here and think about what I'm going to respond to them, this already adds to task loading, which I'm already behind the curve in task loading. And they're probably giving that little second to see if I am, this is sort of a baby compliance test. And at that point, I need to make sure that I let them know that I don't know what they got. I don't know what their problem is. I'm sorry, I can't help you. If I say that and they keep dealing with me, that means they think I've given them a non-negotiable no. I put out a baby compliance. I'm sorry, I can't help you today. But you don't understand. No, I've already told them that. And if they keep pushing past that, that tells me this is not a normal person. If you need a light, you need somebody's cell phone or whatever, and you're walking down the way and you ask me, I say, no, what are you going to do? Okay, he's a jerk. I'll go find somebody else. But if you keep hammering back at him, this tells you this is already sort of some sort of power dynamic check system here. We want to solve that as soon as possible. So first things I want to do is I want to let them know, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you today. If they keep pushing after that, remember this little formula: ask, tell, make. First, you ask them, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Yeah, that was asking. If they do this, then you need to take from your normal average tone, because remember, we first rule de-escalation, we don't want to escalate, then take it up a notch. You may want to get firm and you may want to get a little louder. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm having a bad day today and I'm just have no way to handle your problem. Thank you very much. If after the second ask, tell, you may get to a place where you may have to make them. But there's something in between that little ask, tell, and make. And that is the magic question. Say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Keep it up. You may have to ramp it up. And one thing you might want to do is a magic question where, hey, is there anything I can say or do to let me get by, or you to leave me alone or go find someone else without us having to take this any farther? And if they say, no, you're a jerk, and they go to push you, they go to punch you, or they raise it up, man, you keep this up, then at that point in time, you pretty much set the initiative. You sort of put this in a place where you know what you're dealing with. Remember, the problem with the crime is, when does a crime start? It's when motive meets opportunity. When the criminal has a thought in his head, says, I want this, whether that's a personal crime, a process crime, a profit crime, or some sort of psychotic break. When they decide that, that's when that crime starts happening, when they engage with you. When do you know the crime is? When you read, recognize, and prepare to react to it. The problem is, a lot of times we are 4, 5, 6 steps in this process before we realize we're in a crime where they're already way ahead. We are so far behind the reactionary gap at this point in time. So hands up. The reason I want to put my hands up is a couple of reasons. Number one, this is a universal sign to everybody else in the parking lot. So if somebody's looking over and sees this, they already see that I put this little sign up that says stop. It's also a fence. If they do charge me, I've got things right here where I can react, I can push off, I can get one hand clear to go ahead and draw my pepper spray or whatever I decide I need to handle that situation. The second thing is, once I do that, I've got a problem now. I've got to keep eyes on them, but I also have to make sure I clear my back to make sure no one else is running around. I call it kind of a C move. So once it's there, I want to kind of go not past them, not back up. I want to kind of arc in a circle. So as I'm arcing in a circle, I can kind of keep eyes on him, but I can see what's coming up behind me and being very visual. If you've never practiced this, it becomes a real problem in real life and you'll probably forget it. So you want to make sure that you think about this. As somebody approaches me, how would I do this? First thing I want to do is I want to say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Nice and cordial. If it is somebody, hey, you're explaining to them in a socially acceptable way, I can't help your problem. By throwing your hands up, it's letting everybody know later on if you got to pepper spray them, punch them, shoot them, whatever's going to happen. If there's cameras, you can see this thing right here. This looks good to everybody if you have to amp it up later on. As you're doing that, if they keep continuing with you, understand you've asked them to leave me alone. Next thing you have to tell them, I told you I can't help you. And then we're going to raise our voice. We're going to raise our tone a little bit. We're not trying to disrespect them. We're trying to let them know that I don't know what your problem is. I can't help you. Speak very clearly. I would also recommend we leave profanity out of this. And this is a really hot topic. A lot of people say there's street people talk street language. Not so much for me. You know, the number one rule of de-escalation is don't escalate. And I think if you start dropping F-bombs on them, I think this could be seen as a real problem later on if we have to use force, because we're not trying to disrespect these people. All we're trying to do is get where we want to go or get away from where they're blocking us. And to do this, we want to do it in a way that is legally defensible. It doesn't escalate the situation. They don't lose face in front of their little friends or other witnesses who may or may not be present. So it's just all being very clear and congruent with your message. I'm sorry, I can't help you. I told you I can't help you. I need to pass, or I need to leave here and you need to stay away from me. Raise it on up. If you think we're going to have to go to where we have to make them, you need to start thinking, hey, look, this person is not letting me go. There's maybe two guys who are making me very uncomfortable. I feel like I've got a real situation to where there is a real disparity of force getting ready to be used here. And at that point in time, if you have your pepper spray in your keychain, which is socially invisible, now's the time to get the thumb in on this thing. If you think you may have to gunfight, now's your time to start thinking about, wow, do I have angles here? You know, because if you start shooting it's your person, we have a real problem if you got people, innocents downrange on this backstop. So you may have to start thinking as you arc if this does go kinetic. Also, while you're doing this, start looking for pre-attack indicators. Are they grooming themselves? Okay. Are they bowing up? Are they looking around for other people? Are they scanning your waistline to see if you have a weapon? Do you notice that the jugglers are starting to pulse in this thing? Have they changed color in their face? Pupils dilating? These are all things that could be a problem. And if you decide you're going to make them, let's talk about some tools that you may not think about. One of my favorite tools is, because I think a lot of robberies are going to happen more often in low, altered, or failing light, is I carry a flashlight. Now, full disclosure, I've been through the whole Surefire low light instructor school, so I'm kind of a Surefire fanboy, but this bad boy is awesome. It's also really pricey, okay? Like 300 some odd bucks, but it's flat, it clips, it's really cool. What I like about this in handling some sort of potential robbery where I'm in the interview is if I'm walking along and somebody says, "Hey, can I help you?" First thing I do is turn around, blast them right in the face. Whoops, sorry, I didn't see you. As I blast them in the face, I bring it down. I still have this big halo. See, when it comes to light, we really ought to do a whole low light episode. But there's two things. There's lumens, which is the total amount of light, which means when I do this, I've got this big arc of light where I can see the whole body. But there's a candela. If you have a really good light, it's going to have this little tight hot spot. I can bring that up and put it right in their eyes. The cool thing is if someone's coming along behind me, I'll say, turn, whoops, sorry, and I blast them with the light, bring it back down. I can still see the first words out of my mouth are, "Oh, I'm sorry. You kind of startled me. What can I do? My bad. I got to keep going. Sorry, I can't help you." If they do get hinky, bring it back up into their eyes, which takes away their visual horizon. And then you need to start moving off the X and figuring out how we're going to escape the situation. Because when you're in this situation, you're only going to get three choices: fight, flight, or freeze. That's it. Flight, that's great. If you can talk them out of it, if you can run away from this, if you can put something between you and them that creates a barrier where they can't get to you, great. Freeze, if you're going to freeze and talk to them, understand when you're freezing, the reason they wanted to talk to you was to task load you and to fix you in that spot they picked. If you want to fight, as always, start with the lowest level of force. For me, that is going to be a flashlight. I travel all over the world and I carry my flashlight with me. No matter where I go, it's wonderful. It also works as a great impact tool. But the only thing you have to remember is you have to really make sure you understand that we use light to not only see, but to control them. That means I need to bring this up, put it right in their eyeballs, be prepared to take it down and take it up depending on their actions. Next thing is your pepper spray. The great thing about your pepper spray is if you're in a situation where you think they might have a firearm on them and they're getting ready to rob you, you've asked them, you've told them, you've done the magic question, you think you have to go to this, and they keep reaching their pockets, keep moving on around. This may be a time where if you think you can articulate why you think this is a situation to where, based on your training, your experience, that you think they're going to go to another level, this might be a good time to give them a blast of the pepper spray. If you do that, in some places, this is going to be an assault. My advice to you is I would call 911 and say, I had someone who was threatening me. I had to use pepper spray. And I would get on the phone and call my FLP lawyer right after that very brief 911 phone call. And I would make sure that I had my FLP lawyer on the phone when the officer showed up to guide you through this. Just because it's pepper spray doesn't mean you still can't get an assault charge on them. So something to think about. Also, if you're going to use pepper spray, it doesn't do any good if it's back of the house or in the car. That's why I like attached to the keys. You go anywhere, you have to take your keys, therefore it's in there. If you have pepper spray without keys on it, it really looks bad in the totality of the circumstances. It's like you were carrying a weapon just waiting for somebody to spray somebody having, I wish a fool would try. But if it's with the keys, it's sort of culturally and socially invisible. Now let's talk about firearms. If you decide you want to shoot somebody in this situation because you think it presents a lethal threat, the problem is we can only present our gun into this problem if we think that we have a lethal threat. And if you pull a gun on somebody, at least in my state, that's an aggravated assault, that's a felony. You got some real problems you have to work on. Plus, you have to assume that everything everywhere is filmed some way. And that statement, I think, gets truer every day with more cameras. So this person may have a criminal and a civil case against you. So the problem with using your gun is you have to be faced a lethal threat. And if they've already got a gun on you and you think you're going to outdraw them, that becomes kind of problematic. So they picked you, they positioned, they interviewed you, and they decided to attack. There's another option you also may want to think about, and that is kind of a two sides of the same coin. And what that is when are you willing to just give up and go, hey, man, it's not worth it? One of the things about my watches, I've had it since I was 18 years of age. Over those years, the value of this thing has gone up. It has tremendous sentimental value. I'm very careful where I wear it, but yet still I wear it occasionally in public. But I promise you, we will not have Ariana explaining to you why I'm not on 1 month because I got killed fighting over my watch. That's not going to happen. I've already decided. Look, I'm not shooting somebody. I'm not getting killed for the watch. It's a thing. The legal defense and the social pariah status from that could cost me far more than the watch. But if somebody says, hey, I want your backpack, your purse, your watch, your rings, whatever. You need to come with me. I am never leaving the primary crime scene to go to the secondary crime scene. It's just not happening. But Austin, if you don't go with him, he'll shoot you. Look, the reason you want to take me to the secondary crime scene, whether that's getting in a vehicle or taking me around a corner or putting me in a position of disadvantage, on your knees, face away from me, I ain't doing that. But he'll shoot you. Look, the reason they want that more control is because if it's bad now, it's only going to get worse for me when I submit to that. So that's a hard no. No one's taking anybody in my group away from the primary crime scene. So these are decisions you have to make well in beforehand. And if you decide to throw hands or BJJ on them or whatever, understand you need to go all out. The problem with deciding that you're going to go mano a mano with somebody or choke somebody out is if you are not familiar with violence at that level, you're going to need to do it quick, get the job done, and not play around. And it's a real difficult thing to scale to where you don't end up with a situation where you have disproportionate use of force. So we talk about robbery. Let me back up a step. 2025, we had great news. Crime stats dropped 1 year for reasons I have a theory about, but it doesn't matter. They dropped substantially, like about 20%. That's like 1/5 less, but it's still a very significant challenge. When you go out in public, you expose yourself to being a potential victim. But I want you to think one day and try this little exercise. Just sit in your car in a parking lot or a public space and just ask yourself, if I was a robber, who would I pick? And spend 5 or 10 minutes and you will become a master at it. You're going to start going, wow, that person's got small children with them and they're wearing a very expensive watch and they have this massive ring on. Yeah, I'm going for that because I know with the kids, they can't fight. I can threaten the kids and get with them. Look at somebody who's engaged with their phone, looking down, not engaged with the world, go, man, by the time I'm halfway through the robbery, they're going to be telling their friends, oh my gosh, I looked up and there they were. They appeared out of nowhere. But if you are sitting there and you're watching, and all of a sudden you notice that somebody's walking with their head up, has a logical, visible scan pattern. When they see somebody they think could be a threat or threatening, they just kind of give a little head nod, like, yeah, I see you, and you see me. If you start watching it, you think, man, that's not the kind of dialed in person I want to deal with. And I think there's a whole lot you can do to deselect yourself. If you do have to use force in this, though, this is now where your FLP membership shines. I really highly recommend you get that lawyer on the phone. You're going, but it's late at night or whatever, 24/7, they'll be there. Also understand whether you have to throw hands, whether you have to use pepper spray, whether you use your light. And they go, wow, it caused some sort of retina nonsense. They want some. We need our lawyers handy. And when you call them, understand that is a privileged communication. But while you're talking to your lawyer on the phone, what's being recorded and heard around you is not. So when you're talking to your FLP lawyer, be very careful what you say. All this sounds really dramatic, and it is, but I really do think if you have good situational awareness, you understand ask, tell, make, you have a plan if you have to use force, you understand where your hard lines are, you're going to be a lot farther on ahead. And if you really want extra credit for this session, again, next time you're out in public watching people go through, just ask yourself, hey man, if I want to rob somebody, who would I pick? And then start figuring out why. 5, 10, 15 minutes in a busy place, you will be a master of this subject. And I'd like to finish all my talks as always. Be a guardian always and a warrior if needed.
I love that. And I'm back. I'm here. And thank you, Austin, again, so much for breaking down that topic. Like I said earlier, several times in the intro, in a very practical way. And one of the biggest takeaways that I took from tonight is that if you look like food, then you're going to get eaten.
Thank you, Mom.
Kudos to your mom there. I love that.
I wish you could have met my mom.
I know.
I'm like third generation cops. Like mom was like raised by a cop. She worked in law enforcement as a civilian employee, but all of her brothers were cops. So she was like June Cleaver and Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, she used to tell my brother and I, the reason I had 2 sons, because I could kill one of you and still have some left to chat with on Mother's Day. So one day I said, I think you're bluffing. She goes, hey, chucklehead, how many came before you 2? I'm like,
oh, yeah, that's true.
Lovely woman, beautiful mom. But man, she did not take fools lightly.
Nope. Strong woman. But on a real note, not just if you look like food, then you're going to get eaten, but awareness and prevention is really the first lines of defense. And in most situations, that can all be avoided altogether by making those smarter everyday choices, like what you laid out for us.
Being deselected. We just think,
Yeah.
look, there's a whole bunch of people here. I'm going to look dialed in. And the worst thing you can do, and I didn't mention this though, is false bravado. If you're walking around like, I wish a fool would try, people can read right through that. Violence is a language, and these people are very fluent in it. And trust me, if you're trying to bluff your way through this language of violence and posing, it's obvious. So just be confident, know what your skill sets are, have a plan, keep your eyes up. And again, for extra credit, just start looking around and going, if I was somebody, you'll figure this out and you'll start going, well, do I do that? And if I did that, and you'll be able to change your behavior. It's all about just not being picked. They're still going to rob. We still have to rob you or your people. And also take this webinar and teach your kids this. Teach your elderly parents this, because a lot of times our elderly parents are another problem because, it's a safe neighborhood. I've lived here a long time, but the neighborhood changes. My dad was a different cat at 75 years of age than he was at 45. At 45, he was an apex predator. At 85, he was food. And so it was a tough thing to try to talk to my dad. But once he got that, he was just a lot safer when he's out in public.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like what you also talked about, the reality is even whenever you do everything right, where you're staying aware, avoiding conflict, acting responsibly, life does not always go according to plan. So
bad guy gets a vote. Bad guy gets a vote.
Yep, exactly. Unfortunately, that's just the life that we have to live. But if you ever do find yourself in situations where you have to defend yourself or someone else, there's often that lovely legal process that follows. And that's where firearms legal protection comes in, which you also touched on earlier. But FLP exists to support responsible gun owners and everyday defenders after self-defense incidents.
But was I correct on this thing though? That if you have to toss hands or use pepper spray or bat from the flashlight, you still need to get your FLP lawyer on the phone. I think a lot of people go, well, I don't have the family plan because my partner doesn't carry a gun or whatever. But no. You better have a lawyer, criminal, civil case. Get your family covered.
Yep. No, exactly. It's self-defense. I know we got the F word in our name, firearms, but it's self-defense, period. But yeah, our members, they all have access to that immediate legal support, criminal, civil defense, experienced self-defense attorneys that are vetted, and coverage for legal fees. So you're not having to navigate that aftermath alone. And carrying responsibly also means being prepared for what could come next, which is legal protection, which is an important part of the preparedness strategy. But if you're not already a member, and you'll find a link in the caption or the description below, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can see all of our plans. But as always, we encourage you to just take the time to understand what coverage you have, why it matters before you ever need it, not after the fact, because at that point, it's just kind of SOL, which is unfortunate. But before we get into the Q&A, which we had a decent amount of pre-submitted questions, make sure you're submitting any other questions that you may have. I'm going to quickly explain some of those benefits and for our live viewers right now. And this would just, like what I said, be a great time for you to submit any other questions. And then we'll move on to that Q&A, but we'll be right back.
Firearms Legal Protection offers several different memberships to whoever is interested in signing up for legal protection. These plans are divided into individual plans and a family plan, which some benefits and pricing vary state by state. For the purposes of this webinar, we will look at our most common plans and benefits that are available in most states. The individual basic plan includes protection in your state of residence. It also includes an uncapped payment of attorney fees for defense of criminal and civil cases. Firearms Legal Protection memberships also extend to all legal weapons, including non-lethal weapons. With the individual basic plan, you also have Defense of Extreme Risk Protection Orders, also known as red flag laws. All plans have access to the 24/7 emergency attorney answered hotline, so no matter a time an incident may occur, you can count on our hotline and an attorney will pick up for immediate attorney-client privileges. You also have access to the MyFLP mobile app and one of our recently added benefits, expungement of criminal record on non-conviction incidents. Members of all plans also receive access to digital content and special discounts. The next step up is the individual premium plan. This plan has nationwide coverage and also includes all the benefits just mentioned and payment of bail bond premium, payment of expert witness and investigator fees if either are needed in your case. There's also coordination of counseling support, payment of lost wages if you are out of work during trial, and a list of other benefits. We also have the family premium plan to choose from for those who want the same protection also applied to their family. For just a little bit more, you get all the benefits that were just mentioned applied to your spouse and all minor children. If you want more information over these benefits, then check out our Instagram or Facebook page for uploaded explained benefit videos. Remember, if you, friends, or family are not already protected by Firearms Legal Protection, please click the link below for a special discount we offer our webinar viewers. Now, let's get back to today's webinar.
And we're back for the Q&A. Real quickly, I saw some people commenting on the member number, the number to call whenever you are in an incident. And we had someone already comment on YouTube that's the card that you carry whenever you do become a member. But yep, on your member card, whenever you do become a member, and online, we also send you this information via email. Yeah.
I have the little keychain thing that stays on my keychain. Matter of fact, I need to get another one because mine's kind of frayed because it's been there for many, many years now. But got to take your keys. It's right there. And the great news is if you have it dialed in your phone and they have your phone, I've got something physical in my hand. So if I can borrow somebody's phone to call, and because my phone got jacked, my phone got broken, no cell, whatever. I don't have my phone or they ran off with my phone. I got something physical with keys.
Exactly. And if you usually have people that you're with, it's good for them to have a number because then they could call for you, give you the give the attorney member information that they need to find you in our system. And then we can handle it that way as well, just so you're still taken care of. But yeah, no worries there. We got you that information. So we'll get into the pre-submitted questions. I don't think I saw any other comments that weren't addressing any of the other pre-submitted questions that we have. But the first one we have is, what's the biggest awareness mistake people make in parking lots or gas stations?
Great question. I would say that we don't understand that we're entering into a situation where we need to be careful and not paranoid, but just careful. It's sort of like if I cross a busy street, I need to look left, right, left. I need to look really far down the left and far on the right to make sure no one's speeding, driving drunk, running from the cops or whatever. So just understand I'm in a potential environment. I need to have my game face on, just like when I'm crossing the street. It's just one of those things where you just go, look, I'm in a vulnerable spot. I want to make sure I don't look vulnerable and I want to adapt my behavior to my threat level. And that's it. And also, you cannot walk around freaked out. Number one, increase a poor quality of life. The second problem is you will not read when there's a problem. 98.5, I made that up, but I like it. 98.5 times in this world, you're completely safe. But if you walk around thinking 98.5% of the time you're in danger and your body's picking up too many false alarms, you can't read the truth. Stay chill, look for the baseline. If something makes you go, that's what you focus in on. So yeah, it's about being chill going through the world and just understand you're entering in a place that you need to pay extra attention.
Exactly. All right. Next question. How can someone stay alert without becoming paranoid or anxious?
Same thing. First off, if you don't have a plan, remember, human beings only communicate two ways. That's it. Force or reason. And the problem is most people don't understand that because they go, I'm a reasonable person. I've never used force. I never want to hurt anybody. Understand that if you get someone who doesn't understand reason, you're going to have to use force. So having a tool, equipment, training, and tactics for that tool, you're all set. It gives you internal confidence and it already gives you a proactive playbook. It makes you challenge focus, not threat focus. If he does this, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I have no backup plan. If you already got a pepper spray, a good flashlight, a nice plan, ask, tell, make profile looking out here, you're going to be way on ahead. But if you do walk around freaked out, this not only lowers the quality of your life, it lowers your ability to read threats. You have to be chill in the world. Be Austin Davis. Walk around with a perpetual happy face.
I love it. All right. Next question. What are the most overlooked high-risk moments during a normal day?
When you are not feeling well, when you are overwhelmed, when you have an endless things of to-do list, and you get out into an area where you need to have increased situational awareness, but you're already bogged down by all this other traffic. It's what's important now. So just say to yourself, look, I know got all things going on, but this parking lot's a little sketchy. This gas station's a little sketchy. I'm going to make sure that for the next few minutes, I just focus on going through here and getting my gas or going to the store or getting what I need to do in this environment. Just go ahead and say to yourself, that is a 5-minute problem now that I'm thinking about whether I answer that email or the kids or whatever. Just focus on what you got to do. What's important now? And then limit it and just say, hey, while I'm in this process, I don't look like a victim. Don't look like food. Don't get eaten. So I want to pay attention.
Yep.
And chill.
Yep, exactly. All right. Next question. How important is routine variation in preventing crime?
Unless you're having a specific threat, like someone's stalking you, I don't really think it's that important. You may want to understand, though, that there are some variations in timing. I really do think that there's a whole difference going getting gas at 2 o'clock in the morning than 2 o'clock in the afternoon in a lot of situations. So I'm not so sure about routine variation. You may want to think about the threat profile in certain places. As I tell people all the time when I travel, there's safe places and dangerous places and dangerous places and safe places. And some places that are safe in the day may not be safe at night. So you may understand about the variability of the threat level based on this, that, there's just not enough people moving around to kind of make the bad guys think there's too many witnesses. So I think about that. But as far as the change your routine, and it's sort of like that old thing about don't take the same path home every day. Well, that's great until you get about 3 blocks from your house. There's really only about one or two ways to get there. So there's some limits to that, but I wouldn't worry about that as much. It's something you consider, but it wouldn't be my primary concern.
Yep. Yep. All right. Next question. Can carrying yourself confidently really deter a criminal?
100%. They're looking for quick, easy, low risk, low possibility resistance. What's interesting is my mother, even in her late 70s, we'd walk through, and as we're walking through a crowd in a mall or something, they'd move out the way. Mom was just one of these ladies, and she was a lovely Southern woman. I make her sound like she's like this tough woman. She just had this, I own this space, even at 70 years of age, because she had confidence. It was interesting, even at 70, she still had her head up looking around. She'd make eye contact with people. I learned all this stuff from her. So it is, and if you got in her space, she'd let you know that, hey, you need to move out of my space. I'm not moving out of your space. And it is a subtle thing. What's interesting about my mom is she used her femininity to her advantage. She had that sort of mom energy. I don't know if what I'm saying really translates well in a webinar, but she had that mom energy. And it's not that she's going to punch you in the mouth. She's going to say something that's going to emasculate you if you mess with her. Her tongue was sharper than anything made by Spyderco.
Wow. Wow. That's a strong woman.
She was cool. She was cool. We lost her in July. It was a tough thing, but she had a great life, and she left many people who loved her behind, and wonderful one. Miss her every day.
Yeah, we were blessed to have her here for the time that she was. All right, a couple more questions left. When does awareness stop being enough and self-defense become necessary?
Great question. Let's quantify this. Human beings only communicate two ways, force or reason. So what I need you to understand is awareness needs to stop being enough and self-defense becomes necessary. You're kind of missing the gap there, because as long as you can talk your way into this and they're being compliant, they're doing what you want to do, and it's not just some sort of stopgap measure to fix you in place while the friends come on in or the witnesses go away. So, awareness is reading the problems, but self-defense becomes when we have a situation where we must use force to defend against force. So they're really kind of almost separate topics, but understand that. And the problem is anytime we deal with using force, we have two problems. If we underreact, we have physical problems. If we overreact, we have legal problems. And where that fine line is it's not a real crisp, clean line. There's a lot of blur in that, and it kind of weaves and goes. And the problem we have with that is the bad guy's making all decision. He picks a target, the place, the time. The only thing, he decides the crime when motive meets opportunity. The only we give him is opportunity. So if you understand that sort of formula matrix, you can kind of read that out and you can kind of sense what's going on. But understand, he decides when it happens, and that's when the crime happens. You decide, when it's happening. When it starts for you is when you figure out he's decided and targeted you. And a lot of times it's not an absolute, I'm going to go attack that person. It's like, hey, let's go do a soft pass on him and see if we can get some good signals that this is going to be a nice payday for us.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right. Next question. What's one simple habit people can start today to reduce their risk of being robbed?
Recognize that you're in a transitional space in a high risk environment. And again, just like if you're crossing a busy street, it's just one of those things. You don't cross a busy street without going, wow, I'm crossing a busy street. I get hit by a bus. I get hit by a car, a motorcyclist, a bicyclist. I need to really look and keep my wits about me. You don't want to be surfing your phone crossing the street. Same thing going through here. And then have a plan and, just kind of mentally work it out, war game yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. How should families or couples practice awareness together?
That's a great question. What was interesting was my mom and dad both played the same game with my brother and I. It's sort of like what doesn't belong here. Also, we had, if we got separated, where would you go and why would you go there and where can we find you? Just kind of play these what if games, but you don't. In my family, it was never like the bad man's going to sneak up and grab you. It was always like, you need to be smarter than the bad guy. How can you outsmart him? It was turned into more of an intellectual exercise than a how to beat the boogeyman thing. There are bad people in this world, and if you're a little sharper than them, you have to deal with less bad people, and less bad people have a chance of being successful using you as a victim. So they always had sort of a proactive mindset, but it was always set in the positive. It was never really set in the negative. Even my mom's comment, be careful because you look like food you get eaten in this world. It was sort of that, hey, you're going out in the world. You're not around me. I don't have my sharp tongue and my wit to keep you safe. So head on swivel. And that was it. But I never go through life all freaked out because mom told me, oh my gosh, there's predators out there. It was always like, if you find them, you get to spot them first. You kind of like win the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty, that's the last question. I don't think I saw anything in the comments to address. Before I wrap it up, is there any last remarks that you want to give our viewers?
Guys, this year is going to go by fast like last year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things are going on. What I'd like you to start thinking about is every month when we take one of these skill sets, it'd really be nice if you just said, okay, until you come back and visit us next month, you really just work on this. Just say, hey, man, I'm going to kind of master this skill set. Because if you think about it, the process of being safe is having a bunch of discrete skill sets that you master. Just if you come to one of my classes where I teach you how to use how to operate in a low light environment, and once you understand a flashlight, you got this figured out. You own that tool for life, and it becomes just part of your defensive living process. If you start recognizing that, hey, I'm in a high threat area or a high risk area, I just need to pay more attention. I need to find the bad guy before the bad guy finds me. I need to make sure I give my contact that, hey, I see you. Go find someone else. I know what you're doing. This ain't my circus. Ain't my clown car. It can go a long way. So between now we see each other, do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Make sure you master this. And the next month, we're going to come back to a different topic. Master that. And at the end of the year, you're not going to be a little safer. You're going to be a lot safer because you're going to have this big, broad skill set that will serve as a base in anything. And you won't have a tendency to be overwhelmed by events or to have that sort of, oh my gosh, my brain went blank. I can't believe this happening to me. Yeah, you're going to go, I saw this coming. I had a plan, worked out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And alrighty, everyone, thank you all for joining our first webinar of the year. And thank you again, Austin, for sharing your valuable knowledge. And just whether you're going to rewatch this, replay it later, send it to others, it's just great to have all this information in your tool belt. Absolutely, 100%. And just refreshing next month before our next webinar, kind of like what Austin was saying. I think it's very valuable information. And it kind of helps time move a little bit slower because time just moves way too fast. Like we're already at the end of January. So it's good to keep your brain active and learning these new things that can benefit you. But tonight's conversation was a great conversation and a good reminder that staying safe isn't about being fearful. It's just about being aware, intentional, and prepared. But if you found this webinar helpful, we invite you to check out our library of past webinars from a whole bunch of years on our YouTube channel where we cover topics like everyday carry, legal self-defense, situational awareness, and continued training, and a whole bunch more. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss next month's webinar. And you can also check out Austin's training, his book links, and everything in the description of this webinar and a whole bunch of our other webinars. But if you have any additional questions, make sure to feel free to reach out to us anytime. Yes.
What if we gave a book giveaway to the people that ask questions?
I like this. I like this idea.
I got three of them. I got low light. I got situation awareness, de-escalation, maybe a sign.
You guys all better be watching next month too, because you don't know, it might be giveaway month.
Put a picture of my mother in there.
Oh, I want to win that one. Oh.
I'll see what I can do. I know I have connections with the people who make the decision of who gets the books.
Yeah, you do.
Maybe hook somebody up.
No, I love this idea.
I just love the questions that y'all send in, and I'd like to reward you for doing that. Because it always keeps me sharp, but it also helps me when I forget something, because there's only so much, and I could do an 8-hour or 12-hour class on any of these topics. So it really helps me out. And y'all always ask great questions. You're sharper than the average bear out there. Trust me. I don't say that lightly. Really.
Yeah. You say this off screen too to me. So you're
really
right. You're right.
These are, I'm telling you, our audience is some dialed in cowboys and cowgirls. No doubt.
Oh yeah. But like I said, if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to reach us anytime at marketing@firearmslegal.com. And until next time, stay safe and remember, protect yourself. We'll protect you. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. Night.